law of attraction, law of assumption, manifestation, spirituality. Okay, now that the algorithm is working for me, let's discuss those topics above, but from my perspective. But before I begin, there may be a few of my viewers who are questioning what reality they just stepped into because I'm not making gaming content. Am I shifting gears into motivational speaking or guidance? No, not entirely. I am giving it a shot because a few people in my personal circle have told me to. I'm just making this for the people who want to hear it. Plus, I'd really like to just treat my channel as do what I enjoy, which is many things. So while I create video games and tear other ones apart, I also got to work on myself. And this video is the result of that around 9-month dip from the internet for me. I know for a fact that those of you who understand will find it very interesting. I'm genuinely more or less tired of the way that people have described this whole New Age stuff, although it's not really New Age stuff as people have been practicing it for, I would say, centuries. Let's start with my biggest nitpick. Yes, I said nitpick because this one irks me to a certain extent. Spirituality. I am a spiritual person, yes. I play with oracle cards, and tarot cards, and crystals, and all that jazz, but notice my wording. I play with them. That means I do not live by them, nor do I see them as genuine fact. They serve as a moral guide and motivation booster, much like this video here. Yes, this is a motivational one, just stick with me. Similar to how I personally see the Bible. There are some things that make me have some belief in them, which I'll discuss later, but at the end of the day, they are just a deck of fancy cards or a book of parables. Hopefully I didn't piss anyone off with that statement. I wasn't trying to. That's not at all my purpose. Anyways, this goes with all of the spiritual stuff. Tarot, oracle, prophetic dreams, talking to the Holy Spirit. There are so many different kinds of the exact same thing, all in a different font. And that right there is where my problem lies, because so many people play their version of spiritualism off as if it's fact. Now, I know for a fact a few of you just assume that I'm about to rip into some people and say why they're wrong, but I'm gonna stop you right there. What I truly mean is the ones who try to force you to believe it. If not directly trying to coerce you, they drop constant reminders of their religious or spiritual life and how it leads them even after you've made it clear you're not interested in it. Not necessarily interested as in a disrespectful way, but just like, hey, I believe in my own system, thank you. Their beliefs are the only ones, and if you don't agree, you're automatically someone who's not to be trusted anymore. You know exactly who I'm talking about. I feel like those sorts of things are what ruins the entire idea of spirituality and what it stands for some people. Me and myself included for a long time. I've met multiple different kinds of people like this in many different groups too. Christian, atheist, agnostic, pagan. And it's the people themselves at fault, not the religion or spirituality. Those people also tend to be quite close-minded and often claim to be very open-minded. For instance, having a really open-to-everything belief system like paganism, and then disliking someone because they or someone they are close to believes differently, like Christianity. And the entire reason is spiritual beliefs. Pretty fucking goofy, isn't it? Here's where my beliefs come in. I believe there is a God, but I don't have a label for it. I do consider, the Christian God, right? But I don't consider it a specific denomination like Catholic or anything like that. And in fact, I believe that the universe is made of frequencies, in a weird roundabout sort of way. Technically vibrational stuff, but yeah, it is what it is. And that if we utilize those frequencies, or vibrations, we can benefit our lives and the lives of others. That itself will take a while to explain accurately, so if anyone would like, I can elaborate on that at a later date. It's a really interesting topic in my opinion. I consider that spiritual because I associate those things with God. But it's also scientific because, well, frequencies and literal vibrations, not just good vibes or my crystals are vibrating. I mean the Schumann resonance. Earth's primary vibrational frequency is around 7.8 hertz. That sort of thing. Literal frequencies. Down to musical, even. It's a pretty vast and interesting belief system. To me, at least. It marries faith and science, both of which help me find some sort of reason in life, as is the point of it all in the end. And while I personally treat it as fact and tell it to others if they seem interested in listening, I will never cement it as reality for another person. The very last layer of my beliefs are, everyone believes differently, and I don't mean the general idea of that term, which usually still insinuates groups. No, I mean the literal sense. I do not believe the same way a single person on this planet does. And it is not because I'm some cool hipster that's one of a kind or anything idiotic like that. It's because everyone's mind is neurologically different. thus producing different thought patterns, thus slight differences in beliefs. For example, you may come to see the things the way I do and say, you know what? I like the idea and I'm gonna follow it, but you don't agree with something small, like music being a frequency that dictates life. Everyone, no matter who you are, has some small thing like that they either don't agree with, or secretly agree with, or just slightly see differently. Here's an example. Me and my best friend's sister. Me and her believe in God, but it's not the same God. While sure, both come from Christian roots, one is a form that takes a denomination, while the other is not. My being the form that does not take a denomination. And from her, I heard the term, "Don't worry, my God's got you." And then for some reason, everything just kind of clicked with me. All of the questions I've had about my beliefs in that moment made so much sense. Many people have had such conflicting answers about how to believe when I was younger, and they believed in those differences with absolute conviction. And that's the reason why. Everyone, you, me, my mom, my best friend, it's all because my God's got you. We all believe differently, one way or the other. And when we have the realization that we each have our own truths, I feel like it becomes easier to understand, both ourselves and other people. And in my opinion, that is the most amazing thing about spirituality. It allows for that, the freedom of expression of belief in something greater than oneself. If I had to give it a definition myself, that would be it. Because that's what it's all about in the end. Someone else may believe the exact same way I do right now, and maybe you too after this video, but there will be something slightly different. Now this is where I'll either lose some people, gain some extra people, or a section that will be completely skipped over. The law of attraction. And you know what? That's completely fine. You either love it or hate it. I personally think it is what it is. I utilize it to an extent, but I'm learning where its faults lie, for sure. So what even is it? In short, it states that whatever you put out into the universe will come back to you. Some pair this with spiritualism and energy transference, which supposedly increases the attraction. And while it's really cool, again, something I do follow to a point, a lot of it has to do with another topic that I cannot leave out: manifesting. Those two essentially are like conjoined twins. If you know the law of attraction, you know about manifesting. Manifestation is the idea of focusing on something hard enough that it happens. Controlling reality through thought. Manifesting a car or house by thinking about it every day and you'll eventually get it. Pair this with the law of attraction, which is attracting the thing that you want in life by telling yourself that you want it. It's quite obvious how those two work together, I imagine. And the entire backbone for them both is positive thinking and self-talk. Surround yourself with nothing but positive, and you'll see positive results. This includes your thoughts. Think only positive thoughts, but don't just ignore the negative ones. They're just as important as your positive ones. What you do in a situation where a negative thought comes up is acknowledge that thought and replace it with an equal positive one. Don't just ignore the negative. Depending on what kind of thoughts depends on the acknowledgement, of course. A bad what-if scenario can be responded with, "Thank you for your concern, but I do not need you right now, I'll be fine." A "you've done this before" loop kind of thought can be responded with, "Thank you for the observation, but I'm not the same person I was then." But that doesn't mean don't cry. If you have an emotion that you need to let out, like anger, for example, let it out in a safe way. Like I said, don't ignore it. Acknowledge it and replace it. Acknowledgement of something is completely subjective as well. If you feel sadness and you need to cry to acknowledge that feeling, then do that. But when you're done, don't just leave the open wound. Replace whatever it is with an equal yet positive version of it. That way you can process and not just shove it off. If you don't, it'll eventually come back and bite your ass. My ring finger on my right hand very much understands what that's like. I personally did what I said to do, and then fell out of it, and since then caused literal great physical pain to myself. I very much learned my lesson and will continue to process the emotions and thoughts then and not just let them fester. So, the law of assumption is a funny one to me because it's a double-edged sword. This is the basic concept of living in the end. And to explain the explanation, walk, talk, and act like you're already where or who you want to be. Not pretend like you're there, but genuinely believe it, or know it. Know that you are already there. And to me, it's interesting because it does utilize the fake it till you make it mentality to an extreme. It reminds me of when Jeff Bezos mentioned how he bought cheap suits and pretended like they were expensive, and like he had money and was able to get in good with high people in life. And he's not the only one who's mentioned living by something like this either, so clearly it has some sort of merit to it, right? This is the most esoteric out of them all, because it requires you to do something so drastic. Living in the end. Which means visualizing what you want and feeling it in your mind like it is real. Hella money, a banger job, the best relationship you could ask for. Really live in that moment as if it is real. And eventually, it happens. If you're noticing a pattern here, yeah, me too. This goes hand in hand with the law of attraction. By assuming that all good things are around you, and you'll be surrounded by the best life you can, and really believing and knowing it, you'll attract it to you. Now, as far as how I utilize it, it's very weird. This is where the double-edged sword comes in. I personally can't live in the end, as I'm an overthinker. This creates the fun dilemma of, oh, I'm so happy I'm living my best life and have everything I want, but then what's really in front of my eyes hits me, and it's only in my mind and not here with me physically. And then it turns into a bad way of thinking. Instead, I say, I am the best version of me possible. This way, I'm not assuming something out of my control, like a job or love interest. I'm putting the assumption completely toward myself. Therefore, I can enact that reality because we are the only ones who can truly change ourselves. And that is the best thing you can do with the law of assumption, in my opinion. And here's a real last point. The entire, any of this really works. Like, really. Because it's technically just all science, and nothing to do with spirituality or new age shit at all. It's all you. Me, us, our mind, not performing magic or spells or wonkiness, but our mind shaping the way the world looks around us because of our personal perspectives. I learned a while ago that how you look at the world is exactly how the world will be. If you see negative all the time, chances are you have a pessimistic worldview. If you see positive all the time, you probably have an optimistic worldview. It all has to do with the way that you see everything. And to add to that, the things I talked about above can't just simply be. The law of attraction, assumption, manifestation, hell, even spirituality. Nothing will just happen on its own. Sure, the universe will align with you and your values and wants, as it's said, I guess. But that's only half of the equation. The other half is you needing to put in the effort. And thankfully, I have a story to tell you, based on my life, that's about this topic, and happened within the past few months, and is still ongoing. All because I started practicing what I talked about above, but it's in my own way. I learned about manifesting and the law of attraction from a brilliant man named Bob Proctor. And then I learned of the law of assumption from a man named Neville Goddard. It took me a few weeks to comprehend these ideas, because at first they sounded so foreign and everything the world teaches against, because it literally sounds like magic. Like, oh, perform a spell, you think of something hard enough, it'll happen. That literally sounds like a spell, does it not? That's why it took me so long to wrap my head around. But I eventually picked them up and started to utilize them when I realized the science behind them. Of course, nothing happened right away. It did take some time. But the first thing that I started was with manifesting and attracting, because it felt that it was easier than basically pretending I have everything already. Again, the overthinking kept me from doing a lot and still does in some facets of my life. The manifesting and attracting didn't work for me. Not because it's not real, but because I followed how everyone else talked about it, and that did not work. The one key thing everyone forgets to mention when talking about all of this is the negative mindsets and how they will screw you in the end if you're not careful in how you deal with them. Which I found to be very easy, surprisingly, and I've told you how I did this earlier, so no need to re-explain. Once I got to a point where I could replace my negative thoughts and feelings, that's when all of this stuff started to work. I didn't look at things of, I want this, this, and this, and I'm upset that I don't have it now, but instead looked at things of, I want this, and I know I'll get it because I'm patient. Because when it all comes down to it, patience is all that's really needed for most things. Anyways, with that mindset in place, it only took a couple weeks to affect the one thing I've been focusing on the most as of recently, and should I say, pretty much my entire life, my love life. Quick disclaimer, This is gonna get a little personal, not like weird or anything, but it's a little personal than what I normally talk about with really anybody who's not a close who's not like a close friend or a family member. But it's not gonna get too detailed, so no worries. And this will not be that long, but it is important, at least to me, to reference this in terms of my journey. Enter my current love interest. Let's call him James. James is a regular at the job I work, which is a laundromat that also doubles as a small tanning salon. It's an odd-ass combo, yeah, yes, but I dig it because I get free tanning while employed and half-off tanning products, so we ball. Anyways, he's been a regular at this place for years. I just started in March of this year, 2025, and never noticed him until around August. I mean, sure, I know he'd come in once a week and drop off laundry and dry cleaning, but I never saw him. He was just anyone else. But then, I started doing the whole manifestation and law of attraction, and I myself started to change in a way that was more noticeable to people. My coworker even said that I was glowing one day because of how I was mood-wise and overall vibe-wise. In other words, I became more attractive and magnetic, I guess, just by changing my internals. And not long after, James comes in, and every time he did, he made eye contact with me and said, "It's your favorite customer," or "Your favorite customer's here." And eventually, that became the reality. He did become my favorite customer. And then he caught my attention from that moment on. Not for anything in particular, like his looks or anything. I mean, yes, I find him attractive, and I do adore his bubbly personality, but what draws me in is another thing I've been working on in the background, which is my success. See, James is a successful businessman. He owns a few businesses, which is another reason I've had my eye on him. He's successful, and I realize how much of a gold digger statement that was, but I promise, I promise, that is not at all what I intended with that. I saw instead what I want to become: successful, happy, and confident. I want to learn from him and get to know what he does and did to get to where he is now. Extremely long story short, I got in contact with him outside of my job setting, and things have kind of escalated in a weird way. But not because I just thought, I think this guy is attractive, and just did nothing. I thought, you know, this guy seems like someone I should get to know, and put forth the effort to try. Granted, like I said, it's weird. Signs are being shown, and I'm not the only one who sees them either. My coworker, who has seen literally every interaction with him other than one, has seen the evolution of how he treats me. So, is it all coincidence and weird timing all around? Probably. But at the same time, remember, none of this started to happen until I decided to take action. First, with fixing myself and inner thoughts, then by taking action with things I truly want. The most notable one being my game development, which has made some interesting leaps and bounds recently. But legally, I can't speak of it in detail, but you'll see something here soon about it audio-wise. I won't say how soon, because that's relative, but that's a topic for a different day. But what the fuck was even the point of telling you any of that? The truth behind attraction, manifestation, assumption, and even spirituality, of course. The most important part of this all is you putting in work. And that's one thing people don't tell you. They'll preach all kinds of this and that about these topics and always act like it'll just happen, when in fact, that's not how it works. The first half is believing in what you want. The second half is actually putting in the effort to make it happen. Let me give you a hypothetical. You sit in your room all day doing nothing. You play video games or watch YouTube, but you don't socialize or really have any friends for that matter. If you do, they're probably online friends. You learn the law of attraction and manifestation and assumption and all that fun jazz. You come to believe it, and you turn your mindset around, and you start to feel great about your life and yourself. You're happier, even. So you have hope that one day the thing that you want most, which is a comfortable, physical, stable relationship, will happen. But you still never change the way you live in terms of habits. You still sit all day, every day, playing a video game, or watching YouTube or TV, just anything besides going out and experiencing other people. You might find interest in someone you met online and start a relationship there, and that's great because you both get along well, and you might have common interest, and you have never had any issues. But is that the physical relationship that you're wanting? No, it's not. It's not. It's distance. A very long-distance relationship. And while that's alright for a time, you'll eventually become upset that you can't really do anything an in-person relationship would do, like go on a date, for instance. and then it would start to falter, and probably end in some fashion. And then you're back to square one. But you still have the manifesting and the attraction and stuff. There's always the next one, yeah, but the next one will end up the exact same because you never did the work to actually get what you want. Congratulations. This has been my love experience up until now. And I'm using love as my example for this because it's something everyone can relate to. Regardless of their race, religion, sexuality, etc., everyone wants it. But not everyone is willing to try for it. And that is why this video exists, to help either enlighten you on a new way of looking at things that's helped me personally a ton, or to help those who may have confusion regarding these topics. Not just in love, but in all facets of life. Remember, like I said, I've applied this to my game development, and it's shot leaps. The progress is phenomenal. These things helped someone who was stuck in a cycle of negativity, depression, and anxiety for nearly 8 years. And no, it wasn't an overnight thing. That's another thing that I forget to mention, is that it takes time for your brain to rewrite the neural pathways of thought. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention the science behind that? In short, all of this is literally mindset. Manifesting, attraction, assumption, spirituality, all of it is a mindset that you have built for your own success and or failure based on how you were brought up. And constantly doing things like thinking positively and replacing negative thoughts is just changing neural pathways in your brain. It's not entirely metaphysical, it's very much grounded in reality. You just have to know where to look. But again, this is my interpretation of all of these things, and how I've used them to work for me. I'm still furthering my own personal understanding of these topics, as I've just begun my ascent into the person that I want to be. And I think it'd be entertaining if I dragged you guys with me, wouldn't it? I mean, I don't see very many people doing that. They'll preach about all of this stuff after the work's already been done, but not during the process. And I feel that this perspective of during is a very valuable insight to at least one person. And if this video can find that one person, that's all that matters. That person who really wants to change, to better themselves, to become the best version of themselves possible. And you know that person is you, listening right now. You know who you are, and you know that this video found you for a reason. And you know what to do. Turn YouTube off for the day, lock the fuck in, and go make the impossible regret running its mouth.